Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by. This week's video is on the JBL L100T3 from the 80s. Okay, well let's talk about the L100T3. Yeah. Not sure why they got 3, but so the 3 differentiates itself from the regular T model. So the model line comes in a 20, a 40, an 80, and a 100 T. They all had T's. That was the line before this. All of those, the feedback I think from the marketplace was that the tweeter was a bit hot, a bit shrill. So they modified the crossover to tame it a bit and tone it down just a notch. So then for that model line, this model line, they designated it as a T3. So same model line with the 20, 40, 80, and 100 T3s. If you have a 3, it just means that it was an upgraded crossover. Now, the crossover is documented very well online. If you happen to have a T model and it's not been upgraded already, you can do that. It's not a difficult thing to do. You can send it to your local tech. They can do it for you, or if you're handy, you can do it yourself. The other thing about this model is that, or actually, well, most JBLs, they have foam on their woofers, so that's typically something that needs to be done. If, again, if you're a little bit handy, you can do it yourself. Find the right sized foams. Be sure to find a reputable supplier for those. And, you can do them. The only thing a little bit more challenging with a JBL, and it's not really that bad, but they tend to attach their surrounds to the back side of the woofer, which just takes a little bit more patience to do. But other than that, it's the same straightforward process as any other refoam. So something to look at. So I will go through the review now. I'll go into that and take a listen, compare them against the Advents, and be back to you very shortly with my thoughts. Okay, well, I went through and listened to all my tracks, did my review. So here's my thoughts. Starting out with looks, it is, it's quite the looker. This model, unlike most, is it's got a really nice veneer on the front and the back. So, you could have this, this speaker sort of out more in the center of the room. And if somebody was going to see it from the backside, they'd get a pretty nice view because it looks, it's finished. That's unusual. Most speakers obviously don't have that. The Advents, even, higher end speakers don't tend to have the backside finished out so that, it looks like a complete unit. This one does. So, for that feature and the fact that it has clean lines, I ended up giving it an additional point, 14. I didn't think it stood out completely, but it does a little bit better job than the Advent, which gets a 13. Okay, moving on to sound. So next is imaging, and boy do they image. They have a very good, very broad, very tall soundstage. And it's the tall part that's a little unusual. A lot of speakers will have, a nice, wide soundstage, but it can be narrow. Still fun, still enjoyable, but this is much broader. It's much much more square inches, I guess, between the two as far as vertical and horizontal. So it excelled. I mean, it was a very nice change when you flip the two back and forth. You literally go from this, on the Advent to this and to this, and it's a very nice, pleasant experience. It's very room filling, which is the goal most of the time. So for that reason, it gets 2 points more than the Advent with a 17 versus what the Advent gets, at a 15. All right, so moving into the low end. At least on the 100s, I can't speak to the smaller versions yet. I do have the L80s that I'll listen to at some point, but obviously as you go down, I don't think you're going to get the low end that you get on the L100. It's a bigger box, bigger internal volume, so it does dig deeper, and it's a little more, pronounced. It's there and controlled than the Advent does. Now, the Advent does a respectable job, but you're going to get something for the additional volume, and you get it by being able to dig a little deeper. So for that reason, it gets an additional point of 15 versus a 14 for the Advent. Okay, moving on to the mid-range. Mid-range was a little surprising in one aspect. It was nice. It was clear. Voicing was pronounced. But what it didn't quite have is where it was more pronounced than the Advent a little bit. It wasn't out there in front like the Advent can do, and like other speakers can do, like the JBL 4411 did. So it was good, but not in a hugely different way. The voicing was a little more blended in with the music. While it had a big soundstage, the singer wasn't quite out in front of you, like on other speakers. So I ended up giving it the same score, which is a 16 that I have also for the Advents. So while it was lively, it just didn't, stand out any differently than the Advent. Okay, now they call it the T3 because they modified that crossover and to tame that tweeter. So the question is, did they tame it enough? For me, no, they didn't. For me, it still has a little bit of sharpness. I found it for me, have sensitive ears. To me, it was a little too bright, and I can't say that it was pleasant. It was not fatiguing, or at least, I didn't get any fatigue. It only takes me about 5 minutes. If a speaker really is irritating my ears, 5 minutes, my ears will ache, and I know it right away. I didn't get there with these. But again, there were moments where, I just preferred a little bit more laid back tweeter of the Advent. Now, I think the Advents do an admirable job, but I do realize they're a little more subtle. The technology of that tweeter is a little older and not quite as good as tweeters that were a decade later. So again, I think it's a personal thing for me. It's just my ears. I think most people's ears don't have that sensitivity that I have, and they'll enjoy that. It's definitely livelier. The speakers, when you go A and B, it was very similar to what I experienced with the Yamaha comparison, that these they sound a little veiled, even. When you switch over to these, it's lively, it's exciting, there's a lot going on. And also the efficiency helps with that too. They're more efficient, which is noticeable when you're at the same volume and you switch it over. These are, liven up. They're just, open up the room here, it feels like. And so if you want a lively speaker that's digs deep and hits those highs, this one is going to do that very well. So I can certainly recommend it. Now it gets it gets a lower point from me anyway on the tweeter at 15, whereas I have the Advent at a 16. However, overall, it scores higher than the Advent. It gets a 77 versus a 74. And I only give it that, but unfortunately for me, that one aspect of the high end, it's just something that, honestly, I just can't live with it. And I have to say that I probably won't be keeping these speakers because I don't think I'll be putting them in rotation. For my ears, that high end is extremely important. While I can live with a not as deep a low end, and I can certainly live with maybe the voicing not quite out in front, I can't live with a speaker that's, that sort of I don't find pleasant on the high end. So for that reason, for me anyway, I'll be passing them on. But again, there are lots of fans for these. I know that people have modified those to T3s and everything of their Ts to T3s, and all of them say it's so much better. So obviously, they're liking the speakers, but for me, it's just not a speaker that suits me. And I don't think that should be a surprise. I think giving the variety of voicing for different speakers, that we're all going to, find that particular sound, that we like. And so for me, this one just didn't hit it. Wasn't the same thing for the JBL 4411. I love that speaker. I think it, is, excellent on just about every level. This particular model just didn't do it for me. But again, let's hear from others. Please chime in. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your experiences. I've read a lot of reviews from other people. I know that there are a lot of people that like them. So, just not the one for me. So that's it for this review. I, hope you found it beneficial. Got to see it up close. Let me know your thoughts. If you've done the modification and can talk about what it was like on the T to the T3, chime in. Let others know if that was an easy modification, if it's worthwhile. That'd be a good topic to talk about in the comments. Thank you always for tuning in. And if you want to keep up with future videos, hit that subscribe button. See you next time.